Wood. We got them all? You missing any? All right, yeah. Father, we bless our sons. May you be like Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Ephraim, and Asher. Bless them, keep them, Father, your face to shine on them. Be gracious to them and give them shalom in Yeshua's mighty name. Amen. Amen. We pray for our daughters that you would be like Sarah. Father, like Rebecca. Rachel, bless them, keep them, Father, your face to shine on them. Be gracious to them, give them much shalom, much shalom, much shalom. In Yeshua's name. All those people said amen. 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 Okay, guys, you can be dismissed. All right, stand. Stand one more time for reading the word. Let's make a positive confession of faith today. Say with me, this is my Bible. This is my Father's word. My Father's word. I have ears to hear. I have ears to hear. Eyes to see. Eyes to see. Things of His Spirit. Things of His Spirit. Are not leaving the same. I'm not leaving the same. Say, you're not leaving the same. You're not leaving the same. In Yeshua's name. In Yeshua's name. Amen. Amen. How many of you believe that this morning? Yes. Glory to Adonai, Amorah. Blessed is the Holy One who's to be blessed. Blessed is the Holy One forever. And all those people said, Amen. 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 Ben, see what you can do with that sound, brother. It's just a little bit boomy. Take off some of the boom. I'm hearing it up here. Is anybody else hearing it? Yes. Just a little bit of that boominess. I wouldn't lose the volume. Let the boominess is a little bit. But we're going to turn into the book of Psalms. This may be a two-parter. I really had this stirring in my spirit. And you guys can kick on the air too. I know I'm sweating. I don't know about you guys. Tehillim. How many of you know that the Psalms are actually songs? They are songs, and they were meant and they are meant to be sung, not just read. If you study the Psalms, the Psalm is actually a picture of the life of a person who is righteous. The whole thing is about us. It's about Yeshua, but it's also about the Messiah in us. And so we understand there are various authors. We say, well, there's many authors to the Psalms. True, but there's one author behind every author behind the Psalms, and that's the Spirit of the Messiah. There are actually Psalms that are not in the book of Psalms that we'll get to at another time. So you probably didn't know that. There's more than what we would say 150 Tehillim or Psalms. There's actually 2 songs that are within the Tanakh that we can look at. So we're going to look at the Psalms this morning. I want to look at it begin in Psalm 1, Tehillim 1. What's the letter for number 1 in Hebrew? Aleph. And it's interesting that the Psalm 1 actually begins with Aleph. So let's look at this morning. Now we're reading it, but I want you to understand some of the Hebrew. Some of you may have, blessed is the man. This translation says, happy is the one. Happy. Everybody say happy. 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 Asheri. It comes from the word asher. How many like to be happy? Yes. See the difference between blessed and happy? We say blessed, blessed. Happiness is, some would say, is happenstance. It depends upon a condition. So when we say happen or happy, it's because of what happens. So it says happy, Asheri in Hebrew. Blessed, happy is the man or the one who has not walked in the advice of the wicked, nor stood in the way of sinners, nor sat in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the Torah, or the word of Adonai, his instruction. And on his Torah he meditates day and night. And he will be like a tree planted over the streams of water, producing its fruit during its season. Its leaf never droops, but in all he does, he succeeds. Say this with me. In all he does, he succeeds. He succeeds. The wicked are not so. In Hebrew, lo, they're not so. Not so the wicked. For they're like the chaff that the wind blows away. Therefore the wicked will not stand during the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For Yahweh, Adonai, knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to ruin, leads to destruction, or leads to death. Father, we bless you for your word. Thank you for your word. Give us ears to hear and eyes to see. In the mighty name of Yeshua HaMashiach. All those people said amen. 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 You can be seated this morning. I want to thank Brother Scott. I want to thank Brother Steve. Brother Roger, you brought a good word. All of you brought a good word. I had a chance to listen to most of the messages. I only got a chance to listen as we were traveling and doing things to Steve's beginning of Steve's message. But Steve brought a message on testings. Thanks a lot, Steve. Testing, timing. You know, you have to keep a sense of humor through the things that happen around you. As Angela was in and they were talking about her, sometimes that humor can get me into trouble if you don't know me. I have to watch sometimes, and so we're in the room and they're getting ready to do her surgery. And I told the lady, well, what leg are you going to do? She said, well, this leg. She said, that's the leg, right? I said, yes, that's the leg. I said, you know, if you accidentally did the other leg, she wouldn't have a leg to stand on. Nobody thought that was funny in the room.
Too soon.
You just have to keep a sense of humor. You know, life comes and things happen in life. Happy is the man. When we talk about Psalm 1, Tehillim was Psalm 1. It begins with the Aleph. The number one in Hebrew. Everybody hold your finger up and say, number one.
Number one.
So isn't it interesting that he starts with the number one thing? Happy is the man. Number one thing. If you want to be happy in this life and be blessed in this life, if you're a man or a woman, you put the Father first. Aleph represents God. It's where we get the word Elohim. It's the strength of the covenant. And so we say that he is first and foremost. If we want to be happy, we read Psalm 1 and it compares the righteous with the wicked. And it says the righteous will be like this. But it says, wait a minute, the righteous are not like the wicked. Notice the progression of the wicked. Watch this. Happy, blessed is the one who's not walked in the advice of the wicked. Walked, notice what he's doing. There's some motion there. He's moving. But then it's what? Stood. He stops. And then what? Sits down. Notice the progression of the wicked. Down, down, down. The progression of the wicked. It starts somewhere, but it stops. It goes down. That's not us. That's not the wicked in Hebrew, Rashim, the wicked ones. We're going to talk about the blessed ones, but we'll also talk about the wicked ones. You don't want to be associated with the wicked ones.
Amen.
Right?
Right.
So he shall be, the righteous will be, notice this. The righteous puts Elohim first, and he shall be like a tree. Everybody say tree. Like a tree planted by the rivers or the streams of water. It's interesting. It says that he will meditate on the Torah, upon the word of Adonai day and night. He will be like a planted tree over streams of water, producing its fruit during its season. Notice the righteous person is one who is meditating on the word. He's in a sense thinking about the word constantly. He's got the word in his spirit. How many of you have the word in your spirit? So he's meditating on it. You realize that in the Hebrew means to mutter, to not only think, but to mutter and speak. To mutter and speak. You realize that we see people who talk to themselves. Have you ever seen somebody who talks? Science, I read this recently in an article. How many of you talk to yourself? Hold your hands. It's okay. Hold your hand up. Now, I want to make you feel good about yourself because science has recently proven, and I read this, that the smartest people with the highest IQs speak to themselves. Now, how many of you speak to yourself? Notice the connection. Even science has proven this. It means to think about it, but to speak it, to mutter it. Now, that doesn't mean you look crazy going through the grocery stores. You know, we've come across some of those folks. But it means you speak to yourself. You talk, you speak about the word. You talk about the word. You're meditating on it. And you'll be like a tree that is producing fruit in its season. Notice the connection. I love the Hebrew in this because the word for planted is transplanted. So that tree has been taken from one area to another area. Where has it been taken from? Well, that's a good question. If it's a picture of the believer, how many of you have been transplanted? From a dry place, from a place that does not produce fruit, to a place of living water. Yeshua said that out of him, he said, I am the one who gives rivers of living water. And if you are in connection with him, you have rivers of living water coming out of you. See, we tend to think that, and it is spiritual, and that is a picture of the Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh. But it's not just about our feeling good. It produces fruit. Why do you think that he gives us the Spirit of Messiah? And how many of you have the Spirit of Messiah? Help us today, probably. That's good, but understand the Spirit of Messiah is not just to make us feel good and have goosebumps. I love what Linda says. She says chicken box, chicken skin. It's not just to make us feel good. He's not just there to, and that is good, to bring us shalom and bring us peace. And you know, that's all part of it. But understand, the ultimate thing here is to produce fruit. If you are a tree planted by streams of water, it's not just to sit there and look pretty and go, aren't my apples lovely? Don't I produce wonderful oranges? It's to produce fruit. Everybody say fruit. Fruit. That's why the Spirit of Messiah is here. To bring about the fruit for the kingdom. The righteous are transplanted from one place to another, streams of living water. That's moving water. It's not stagnant, it's life, and it's living. Everyone say living. Living. So he shall be, say this with me, I'm a tree, planted by streams of water. And it says its fruit shall not wither. In its season it's going to produce fruit. The Hebrew word there is poreh. Poreh, it's where we get the blessing. Every time we sing the blessing. When we say poreh, 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 that is the fruit. But I love that because it's not, it is fruit, but it's also, it can mean foliage. It can mean produce. If you go down to the store down here at the end of the road, you don't have to do it today, but you go down to the end of the road, there's a produce store. Isn't that so good? Things too. It's pretty cheap. They get it involved. There's all this produce. That produce is fruit from the plant. Everybody say produce. That Hebrew word can also be reward. Every time that we sing that blessing over our beverage, and we say, blessed are you, or over our fruit, King of the universe who brings forth the fruit. You're saying, you're speaking something, but you're in the spirit world, in your spirit man, you are proclaiming, you're thanking him for the fruit that is coming. When was the last time you thought of yourselves as a fruit? Well, you're not a fruit, but you're that produces fruit. We're called to produce fruit. That's why he gives us the Spirit of Messiah. Not so the wicked. Say this with me. Not so the wicked. The wicked, the Rashim. Rashim in Hebrew. That literally means twisted ones. The Rashim, see the tree that is planted by streams of water is going to grow close. It's going to grow in, the roots go into the water. The Rashim, the righteous ones bend toward the word. The Rashim bend, literally the Hebrew, the twisted ones bend away from the word. See, when you have connection, when you have face-to-face connection with the Father, you turn to him. The righteous turn to him. The wicked say, don't want that. The wicked turn their backs. The wicked go back to when Adam was cast out of the garden. They like being out of the garden. They're on their own. Freedom. Don't have to worry about somebody overseeing us. Don't have to worry about this God overseeing us. That's the wicked ones. Those are those who have been dead. And even, hear me, I know we don't like to talk about this because we like to think everybody's nice. But we live in a wicked world.
Yes.
How many know that?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't love people. You still love people. But there are people who are wicked in their spirit. They don't want anything to do with this. Nothing to do with it. We have our own ways, our own methods, and that's the wicked. Everybody say wicked. The twisted ones. Literally, I find it interesting. It can actually mean this. That word for Rashim can mean hostility against God and his word. Hostility. Hostile. How many of you have ever met hostile people?
Yes.
Listen, we live in a hostile society. People are just angry. They're just angry. They're mad about things. And some people have a right to be mad. But these people are hostile against the Almighty, and they're hostile against anything that stands for the Almighty. You ever had somebody be angry with you and not know why? You ever had that happen? How many have ever had that happen? You know why? That spirit in them. Hostile. People tend to be hostile toward the things of that life. They don't want anything to do with that stuff. So they turn their backs. We can do it ourselves. I'll give you just a couple. I want to back this up with scripture. I want you to see this. There's the word for blessed. Asheri. There's a beautiful picture of the tree by the water. But let's look at a couple. Everybody say Rashim. Rashim. Let's look at the hostility of the wicked. A wicked man accepts a bribe behind the back to pervert the ways of justice. What does a wicked person do? Pervert. What's justice? Justice is the word. Justice tells us the right way to do it. A wicked person wants to pervert that way of justice. He or she does not want justice. They want to twist things around. We certainly live in a society that's doing that today. Look at another here, Proverbs 18:5. It is not good to show partiality to the wicked or to overthrow the righteous in judgment. The concept here is again hostility. Everybody say hostility. Notice overthrowing the righteous. Hostile. Angry. Let's go out. There's nothing wrong with being angry for a right cause. Hear me when I say that. It's good to be angry for a righteous cause. But know how to do things. It's good to stand up for the word.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yes. Amen.
We need to stand up for the word. But don't just stand up for any cause. Be careful of the causes that you associate yourself with. So overthrow the righteous to be hostile. Let's look again at Isaiah 41:16. And watch this. You shall winnow them. The wind shall carry them away. And the whirlwind shall scatter them. You shall rejoice in Adonai and glory in the Holy One of Israel. And you're probably saying, well, what does that have to do with the wicked? If we go back to Psalm 1, it says this. Psalm 1 tells us that the wicked are like the chaff that the wind blows away. You ever see wheat and chaff? Carrying maybe a wheat stalk for Shavuot. How many of you got your wheat stalks? If you notice on your wheat stalks that there's fruit in that, but there's chaff that surrounds that fruit. And what happens to the chaff? It blows away. I made the mistake of setting that in the back of my car. My back of my car was filled with chaff. The wheat was still connected to the stalk, but the chaff was all over the back of the car. So I got the vacuum cleaner, and I'm trying to vacuum it and stick it in the thing, you know. But the chaff won't stay. The chaff does not last. Here's the chaff. And it flies away. You realize that back in the ancient days in Israel, how they took care of wheat, how they processed wheat, they had a winnowing fork. And they would go and they would take this fork and they would take it into the wheat and they would throw it, they would throw the wheat into the air. And the wind would catch the wheat. The wheat, which was the fruit, everybody say fruit, would be caught by the wind. The wheat would fall into the place where it was supposed to be. It lasted. But the wind would come and pick the chaff up and blow it away. And that's how they processed their wheat. And that day they would crush it. They would hit it. The wheat was good, but the chaff would always blow away. And it's a picture of the wicked. Those that their minds are not so set in the Torah and the ways of Adonai. Everything they do it's going to be like chaff. And in the end, when it's all said and done, wow. The wicked and the blessed. The blessed produce fruit that will last. The wicked, everything they do in the end is just going to blow away. It's going to blow away. Turn your neighbor and say, it's going to blow away. Blow away. Chaff. The chaff. What is this? Isaiah 40. Let's go to, I want you to see where this is not just the one time where we see this, but I want you to see the chaff being blown away. Let's look at Hosea. There's a picture of it. Notice the chaff and notice the wheat. Okay, let me ask you a question. You say, okay, let's examine this. The wheat is going to bring something that is going to produce food for you to eat. Sustenance. Sustenance produces life. Everyone say life. What if we try to make a sandwich out of this? Well, I guess if you were a horse, you could. I don't know. I've never fed my horse chaff. But yeah, it might have a nice... Yeah, I've never tried to chew it. I don't think I ever want to. Is there life in this? Not really. There's no heavy... We're going to get into some things here today. Why doesn't this blow away? Because there's weight to it. There's heaviness to that. We're going to talk about that. The wheat, life versus death. Notice that the two are connected. Yeshua said, he talked about the false tares in the wheat. Yeah. And they said, and what did they say? The angel, let's go and tear up the false tares. And he said, no. Let them grow together. Wheat and tares. We're talking about wheat and chaff. But notice that the chaff and the wheat are always seen together. How How many know we're in a society where there's wicked in the society? The righteous and the wicked. It's always been that way, guys. There's always going to be that field where you see this and that, the blessed and the wicked, but they're growing up together. I'll here say this before we get into it. I'm going to say something. We can see that even within us.
See that
In us.
Yeah.
You can see the righteous, but you can also see that mind that fights against the Torah, that fights against the Bible.
Yeah.
And some of you look at it like you say, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, come on. We all have that concept of the flesh that we have to fight. It's the mindset of the flesh man. The Rav Shaul talked about, he said, why do I do what I don't want to? And I'm thinking, he said, why don't I wrestling? It's the wheat and the chaff. Not there yet. Let's look at another couple scriptures here. Hosea 13:3, therefore they shall be like the morning cloud, like the early dew that passes away. He's speaking about the rashim, like the chaff blown off from a threshing floor and like the smoke from a chimney. Notice all these concepts. The morning clouds fade away, the chaff being blown away, and the smoke goes away. You see it for a minute, it's there for a minute, and then it's gone. Let's look at another, Isaiah 17:13. The nations will rush like the rushing of many waters, but Elohim God will rebuke them, and they will flee far away and be chased like the chaff of the mountains before the wind. Like a rolling thing before the whirlwind. Notice again the concept of the wind blowing away the chaff. Say this with me. The wind blows away the chaff. It's a concept. Let's look at another. Job 21:18, and they are like straw or chaff before the wind, like chaff that a storm carries away. What blows it away, guys? How do you say wind in Hebrew? Ah, you're onto something. The ruach. What does ruach mean? Spirit. You seeing the connection? You're starting to see the connection? What produces the fruit? The ruach. What chases away the chaff? The ruach. In the end, even it talks about the nations conspiring and making a plan for Israel with their own devices and their own minds. But in the end, the Father says they're going to be like chaff. Their plans will be blown away, just like the chaff in the wind. I'm watching the news. If you're watching the news and you're seeing the nations are coming together, we just saw Kushner, Trump's guy, Kushner over there, and he was in the Middle East, and he's meeting with all the kings of the Middle East, and he's meeting with all of those in Israel, and they're putting together a peace plan. A peace plan. At the same time, it's interesting, we see the Prince of England, who's soon to be king, is putting together a peace plan. I think they're working side by side. I don't think it was a coincidence that they were both over there around the same time. What bothers me is we say, well, we like Trump. Some of you like Trump. I think he's doing a wonderful job. This is what it is. I think he is. But hear me when I say this. Don't touch Israel. Don't. They're talking about putting in a peace plan to say East Jerusalem will be part and be the capital. And we're going to go back to the pre-borders and we're going to do this. Listen, every president that's ever tried to do that has failed. And it's always failed. And it'll always fail. We need to be very careful about touching the apple of Adonai's eye. Supporting, yes, but changing boundaries. Torah talks against changing the boundaries of the ancient lands. There's a curse when you do that. We don't want to change the boundaries of the land. One thing that really bothered me, I'm just on my little soapbox here, but one thing that bothered me was that Jared Kushner refused to meet in Jerusalem with the mayor. You come to me, he said, I'm not coming to Jerusalem. Bothers me. That's a problem. You don't want to offend the others. That's a problem. There's some issues there, guys. Why am I talking about this? Because in the end, the Bible talks about a covenant of shalom, but it's going to be with the anti-Messiah. And Israel is going to accept it. But the Father says, no. He says, you want true shalom, it's going to come through me. And every peace process that is not based upon His word is going to go. Everything that we do as a people, as a family, a people, a congregation, or a nation, if it's not based upon His word, it'll be like chaff and it'll float away. The Ruach will come and blow it away. I'm also reminded of in the book of Revelation when the anti-Messiah stands up to fight the Mashiach. And Messiah comes from the heavens. How does Messiah defeat the anti-Messiah? With the breath of his mouth. The Ruach. The chaff. The Ruach always drives the chaff away. The Spirit always drives the chaff away. Say this with me. The Spirit always drives the chaff away. Let's look at another. Psalm 35:5. Let them be like chaff before the wind. Let the angel of Adonai chase them. Interesting. Chaff passes away. Chaff disappears. There's no fruit, there's no life, and there's no weight. Let's talk about chaff again for just a moment. Let's talk about wheat. When we talk about weight, everyone say weight. The Spirit comes to somebody who's a believer, just like that tree, and we are planted in His Word, and we have the Spirit of Messiah. We're born from above, born again, receiving the Spirit of Messiah. And now we're planted, in a sense, like that tree, and there's the Word, and it brings forth fruit. Think about wheat and chaff. I know we're talking about trees, but we're also talking about wheat and chaff. The wheat, why is it that the chaff, the wind doesn't blow the wheat away, it just blows the chaff? The chaff has no weight. It blows away, it has no weight. Do you realize this? That the word for weight, one of the words for weight in Hebrew is glory, is kavod. Everyone say kavod. So how many of you want to experience the glory of Messiah? That glory, when we accept Yeshua as the glory, and we receive Him into our lives, He gives us a taste of that glory, and that produces the wheat. The wheat, in a sense, is heavy. The wheat, because the wheat doesn't move when the wind blows on it. The wheat, in a sense, is full of glory. If you take a piece of wheat, you say, well, wheat's not full of glory. Oh yeah, you take a piece of that wheat and you put it in the ground, and you water it, what's going to come up?
Wheat.
More wheat. More wheat. How many of you would agree? Wheat is full of glory.
Yes.
There's life in wheat. There's something that the Father has spoken His word in each piece of wheat. He's spoken that word of life to say it's going to bring forth more, and it's going to bring forth more because there's glory associated with it. That's the picture of the righteous who are bringing forth the wheat. The wheat is heavy. You know, wheat and tares. We've all read about the wheat and tares. Just a little rabbit trail. How many of you have ever read about the wheat and tares?
Yes.
The difference between the wheat and tares, if you don't know this, is when you look, they all look the same, but the tares stand like this. The tares stand upright, while the wheat bows down and goes up. You know why? Because the tare has no weight. The tare has no weight. It's not heavy, but the wheat is full of life and glory, and the wheat bows down. You say, what does it have to do? That is humbleness. If we really have fruit in us, we're going to be humble people. We're not going to be proud and walk around, stick out our chest. We're going to be humble people. Everyone say humble. A little side note. Doesn't cost any extra to receive that. Wheat. Everybody say wheat. So before we get in, yes, a couple
You
questions.
talk about the weight. They've done studies on people at their moment of death, and for no discernible reason in the physical, they lose weight when they die. A measurable weight is gone when they die.
Interesting. Can I ask you guys to grab me just a water? Please, thank you so much. He desires wheat for us. He desires us to experience the wheat and the glory in our lives. He just doesn't save us to say, okay, now just go and have fun. He says, I want you to have wheat. I want you to produce. Thank you so much for tonight. I'm going to give you some examples out of the, let's go to the Torah for just a moment. Wheat is lasting substance. Say this with me. Wheat is lasting substance. In other words, He puts us on the earth to produce fruit that's going to last. He doesn't want you to stand at the end of your life and say, well, I don't have anything to show. Nothing to show. No, He wants you to stand, and so that you'll say, look, you're going to produce. And I'm not saying that you have to produce something that is, this is not based on works, guys. We love Him, and so we are serving Him and love Him. It's all together. You see that? We have trees. We just bought some trees last fall. Ted helped me with the trees. We planted those trees. I planted those trees by faith. Those trees are in our yard. We planted those trees. And I said those trees are going to produce something by faith. We're going to talk about that. They're not producing today. The trees are going to produce, well, there is one little apple, Ted, on one of those trees. They're just young. But in the future, those trees are going to produce. I saw in the future, I said, that tree is not for next year or even next year. Those trees are going to produce fruit. And guess what? We're going to get to eat on those trees. But we got to water them. We got to take care of them. I was seeing in the future, those trees are going to produce lasting fruit. Everyone say lasting fruit. And I guarantee you, those trees are not doing this. They're not going, oh, come on, apples, come on, apples. Come on, pears. Trees don't do that. You know what trees do?
They just stand and grow.
They stand and they grow. And they be who they're supposed to be. That's a picture of us as believers. Be who you're supposed to be. If you really are a believer in Yeshua, just be who you're supposed to be. Don't try to be somebody that you're not. Be what He's made you to be in Him. The world's big on that. You just be who you're supposed to be. Well, you can't be who you're supposed to be unless you have the Spirit of Messiah in you. Then you really know. How many know this? Then you know what you're supposed to be. And just enjoy His presence and obey His word and meditate on that word. And let the fruit, the lasting fruit, come forth. Everyone say lasting fruit. He wants us to have lasting fruit. Let's look at this. Deuteronomy 8:7-8. Adonai your God is bringing you into a good land. Everyone say good land. Notice a land of brooks of water, fountains and springs. It's the life that flow out of the valleys and hills. A land of wheat. A land of wheat. He's bringing you to a place. Can I say this prophetically today? He's bringing us to a place, and you to a place, where He says, there's wheat.
Amen.
There's wheat. No more chaff. How many want something of substance that's going to last? No more chaff. It's His desire to bring people to that place of substance. I think that's an issue with some of the bodies, some of the congregations and churches. I'm not pointing fingers, but there's too much chaff.
Amen.
There's too much fluff. There's not enough word. You've got to teach people the word to understand what it's all about. How many are with me on that? Amen. Good. Well, about half of it, Father. We'll get the other half here. Psalm 81:16. He would have fed them also with the finest of wheat, and with honey from the rock I would have satisfied you. It's His desire to feed us wheat, to give us lasting substance. But there's a way that we have to do. What do we have to do? We have to trust Him. We have to serve Him. We have to love Him. Remember, blessed is the man. Happy is the one who what? Planted by streams of water. You know the enemy wants to try to come and move trees, take trees out, move trees around. He wants to take you from that living water. Interesting. Let's look at a few more here. I want to go to the renewed covenant. Luke 3. We're still talking about chaff and wheat. John answered Yochanan, saying, I indeed baptize you, or baptize you with water, but one mightier than I is coming, whose sandal strap I'm not worthy to loose. And He will baptize you with the Ruach HaKodesh and with fire. Everyone say, Spirit and fire.
Spirit and fire.
His winnowing fan is in His hand, and He will thoroughly clean out His threshing floor and gather the wheat into His barn, but the chaff He will burn with unquenchable fire. The picture is this. Messiah has He's got His farm. How many of you have ever thought about Yeshua as a farmer? He's got His farm, and He's got the winnowing hook, and He's taken that, and He's seeing the wheat, and He's lifting it up, and His Spirit is blowing everything away that's chaff. And He takes the good stuff and He puts it in His barn, but the Spirit drives the chaff away, and the fire burns it up. Interesting. The Spirit. We tend to pray. How many of you want to move of the Spirit of Messiah? This really spoke to my heart, because think about this. We all want to move of the Spirit. There are churches who are preaching and they're saying, Bo, come Holy Spirit, touch us. And while that's good, and hear me when I say this, there's two sides to the coin of this, guys. Because the Ruach HaKodesh, when He comes, yes, He comes and gives us gifts to produce fruit, but also the Spirit will blow away the chaff. He'll even do it in our own lives. He'll blow away that chaff. Those things that we wrestle with within our minds, because remember, the wheat and the chaff are seen together. And those things that we wrestle with, the Spirit will come. If you are a real believer in Messiah, it even may take some time, but that Spirit will come and begin to move things out.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes it's very, very uncomfortable. How many know when a move of the Spirit comes, sometimes it's uncomfortable? You'll see things in your family, you'll see things in your home, in your congregation. You'll say, well, I don't know about that. I'm not talking about weird things. I'm just talking about things happening that it disrupts. Disruptions. What I would call holy disruptions. Holy. Say this with me. Holy disruption.
Holy disruption.
I'm not talking about somebody standing up in the middle of service and being out of order. I'm talking about things shifting and changing and moving in our lives. And we say, we didn't even see that coming. But the Spirit is at work many times. And sometimes we even want to rebuke that. We go, well, I rebuke that Spirit. Maybe it's not the Spirit you should rebuke. Maybe there's a reason why it's happening, to blow the chaff away. Get that?
Yeah.
I've seen people leave relationships, and other people go, why? You know, why did that man leave me, or why did that woman leave me, or why did this happen? Maybe it's to produce some changes. How many of you believe that the Spirit is at work within all of us, within you, right? If everything works for good, the Spirit is moving, and we say, well, why does that happen? Why did I lose my job? Why did that person die? Why did that person? Maybe the Spirit is moving to say, let's get some chaff out and let's produce wheat. Let's discern between the wheat and the chaff. And we follow after the chaff, or follow after the wheat and not after the chaff. Are you all still with me on that?
Yes.
Interesting. Even when the Spirit begins to move in our hearts, and sometimes we have those things in our minds, and He says, no, I want to get you back. I want to get you to a place where you can produce the wheat. Turn your neighbor and say, produce the wheat. Produce the wheat. Think about this. This amazes me. Here is Yeshua. He's in the water. We just read about him being there with the, okay? Here's Yeshua who's in the water. He mikvahs. The voice comes from heaven and says, this is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. How many of you have ever read that?
Yeah.
Top of the mountain for Yeshua. His Father has just given the seal of authority. He's got the anointing of the Spirit of Messiah on him in the form of a dove. He is announced as the one. He comes out of the water, and if you read it in Scripture, it says the Spirit leads him where? To the wilderness. The wind takes him to a place where he's going to be tested. And what most of us would have thought was, well, we rebuke that spirit. He's trying to do that. What is that? The Spirit led him to that place. It wasn't the spirit that was bad. The enemy comes and tempts him. Yeshua had flesh too, right?
Yeah.
What's the very first thing he's tested?
Food.
If you're hungry, now watch this. If you're hungry, if you're the Son of God, turn this rock into, and what's bread made from? Wheat. Hello? Chaff and wheat. What's happening? Why did Yeshua have to go through that? To be an example for us. There was no sin, there was no guile in Yeshua, but he had to walk this out so that we, as followers of Messiah, will walk in his footsteps. He'll take you to places where the chaff and the wheat. He wants you to see. How many of you want to know that you have wheat? Right? He wants us to be people of substance in a wheat, not of chaff. Let's look at another few here. Just a couple more here. Luke 22, 31, 32. And Adonai, the Lord said, Simon, Shimon, Shimon, Hasatan has asked for you that he may sift you as wheat. But I pray for you that your faith should not fail, and when you return to me, strengthen your brothers. Everyone say Kepha. Kepha, Peter, little stone. He has just made an announcement. Lord, he said one of the greatest things. Nobody else said it. Here's Yeshua. They're gathered around a campfire. How many like campfires? Summertime, campfires. Everybody's sitting around. No, they're snacking. They're probably eating. And he says, my translation, he says, boys, who do people say I am? They speak up. Well, some say you're a prophet. Others say you're Elijah. Maybe you're Isaiah. You're a reincarnation of John the Baptist. They all give their opinions, and then he says, who do you, it comes right down to the heart of the matter, the wheat of the matter. Who do you say I am? Who do you say? And they're all kind of like, and Cephas speaks up and says, you're the Mashiach, the Son of the Most High. And Yeshua doesn't criticize him. He doesn't put him down. He says, you said right. Upon this rock, I'll build my Kehillah, my congregation. It wasn't that Cephas was the first pope. It was the statement of faith that he made. He said, upon that statement of faith, that you are the Messiah, I will build my congregation. And for everybody to be a living stone in that congregation, you start with your statement of faith that Yeshua, HaMashiach, Hu Adon, Yeshua is Lord. How many have ever done that? That's your statement of faith. And he says, upon that I will build. And so here he is at his peak. And then he says, oh, by the way, Kepha, he says, little side note, enemy's going to try to sift you. Hasatan is coming. The enemy's going to say, now how do you know that would pretty much shake you up, wouldn't it? Wait a minute, I just said you're the Messiah. But every time you make a proclamation of faith, the enemy comes to test. How many of you have ever been tested in your faith? Whenever you make a proclamation of your faith, I don't care what it is, you make a statement of faith, the enemy will come to sift it to see what's real and what's not. Are you really who you say you are? Are you really in your faith like you say you are? Let's test it. And remember, I love what he says, because he says he wants to sift you like wheat, separating the chaff from the glory. Separation. But he said that's not, listen, he says, when it's all said and done, he says, I prayed for you, and you're going to come through it. You're going to rise up. And what happened? We see that happen later on down the line, where he denies Messiah. He went from proclaiming Messiah to denying Messiah. Yes. One of the saddest things in the word that you read. And he was ashamed, guys. He was ashamed. Afterwards, he was ashamed. He didn't want to, he said, I'm going fishing. And here is Yeshua, who says, do you really love me? He says, feed my sheep. 3 times. Take care of my, feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. 3 times. Restoration. He denied him 3 times. Do you love me? 3 times. He said, yes. Restoration. He separated the chaff from the wheat. Kepha could walk now with a new walk and understanding the difference between chaff and wheat, flesh and spirit. Are y'all with me on that? Yeah. Anybody learning anything today? Chaff and wheat. The chaff is associated with the wheat because there's no glory to it. There's no substance to the things of this earth. But to the ways of the Father, there's substance. Everyone say substance. Substance. A couple more. 1 Corinthians 15:58. Therefore, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of Adonai, knowing that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. Now we say, what does that have to do with today? He's saying, look, you guys are fellow workers with me in this harvest. Always keep the mindset. What's the mindset? Steadfast, immovable, always abounding. That means producing fruit. Everybody say produce. Turn your neighbor, tell them, produce that wheat. Knowing that your labor is not in vain. You know where we miss it as a people and as believers? We feel like it doesn't count. We get into that mindset where we say, it doesn't really matter if I pray for that person. It doesn't matter if I come and worship team. It doesn't matter if I play the guitar or sing or pick up a mic or play the piano. It doesn't matter if I really show up. Oh, but it does. Do you realize there's been times where just because, I can tell you, and I say this because I'm proud of our team, but the worship team, when they come together, that is a way of ushering in. You don't, how many of you have ever been touched by a song in here?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
What if everybody would have said, doesn't really matter? What if we said, it doesn't matter if I reach out and call that person? It doesn't matter, I may look foolish laying hands on that person. Who am I? But he says, your labor is not in vain. There will be fruit. Amen. The enemy likes to hit us and say, it's not going to matter if you reach out and touch. It's not going to matter if you stay diligent. That's a lie. Say this with me, it does matter. It does matter. Everything that we do for the King matters. Even a glass of water. When you take a glass of water, Yeshua said it himself, cold, well, it's not very cold, but it is water. And when you take that water and you hand it, it said you hand that water to a prophet. He's telling even to a prophet. And I'm not saying I'm a prophet, but I'm saying if he said that about prophets, what is he saying about his sons and daughters? And you reach out. He said, so it matters, the little things. If he calls you to it, do it. If he calls you to it. Amen. If we do it in our own strength, it's flesh. If he calls you to it, do it. You gotta get a drink. I've heard stories upon stories of people who have reached out, done what they were supposed to do, even seemingly strange things, but there was fruit that came forth. Don't be discouraged in what you're called to do. Let's look at another here. 1 Corinthians 3. According to the grace of God which was given to me as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation. Again, we're talking about building. Another builds on it, but let each one take heed how he builds on it. For no other foundation can anyone lay than that which is laid. And that is Messiah, Yeshua. So you have to start in the Messiah. Seek his face in all that you're supposed to do. Now, if anyone builds on this foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, and straw, each one's work, say this with me, each one's work will become clear, for the day will declare it, because it will be revealed by fire. There's that picture of fire again, burning up the chaff. And the fire will test each one's work of what sort it is. If anyone's work which he has built on it endures, he will receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned, he will suffer loss, but he himself will be saved. Yet so as through the fire. Now watch what he connects it to the Spirit. Do you not know that you are a temple of God and that the Spirit of Elohim dwells in you? Everything that we do, we are building upon Yeshua as the foundation, and we're trusting for good fruit.
Amen.
And we're looking for that fruit to happen and come. Very interesting. Kepha goes on to say it like this. In the book of Kepha, he says that there are those that forget. They can't see. He says they're nearsighted because they forget to do these things. They forget brotherly kindness. They forget faithfulness. And he goes on the list in Kepha. He tells them they forget really how to do this stuff. And so he calls them nearsighted. Everyone say nearsighted.
Nearsighted.
I used to get that nearsighted and farsighted confused. You know what nearsighted is?
You can see near.
Exactly what it sounds. You can see near. Nearsighted. They can see right here. They can see in front of their face, but they can't see. And so here's what I'm saying to you today is this. You are at work in the midst of your field and in the kingdom of Messiah. Don't be nearsighted. Well, this is what I'm seeing today, and this is how I'm basing everything on today. Be able to see down the road. When the tests and the trials come, and the enemy comes, and hear me when I say this, the enemy will come to test. He will test you with everything he's got.
Amen to that.
He'll try to shift you and shake you, but if you continue steadfast with the mindset that I'm going, like Steve said, this is a test. These are fiery trials. How many have been through fiery trials? If you continue with the mindset, then you're going to produce fruit. But if you get shaken, just like the chaff, and you get shaken, see, there's no fruit in that. He's saying, don't be nearsighted and see. You need to see down the road at the fruit. I'll reach out and touch this person. I'll reach out and touch this person, and this person, and this person, because it's going to produce fruit down the road. Remember my fruit trees, guys? Remember what I talked about the fruit trees? My fruit trees are producing, but they're going to produce even more next year, and next year, and next year. But I wait for those trees to produce. All those trees have to do is just be who they are in Messiah, who He made them to be, and they will produce. I wait. The mindset. What if I run out tomorrow and say, doggone it, Ted, those trees we planted, you must have did something to those trees. Because harvest time comes and I say, Ted, those trees aren't producing anything. I'm going to go out and I'm going to cut them all down. Ted said, what'd you do? You couldn't see past today. And a lot of believers are like that. They can't see past the stuff today to say, we're going to keep doing what we need to do to produce the fruit. If we would have given up, some of you know this, and I've shared this with you, we started here in Mansfield. We had a tough time of it in the beginning stages. People, it was pretty interesting. And I got to, well, we had people that were headstrong. We had people who were headstrong, and they just thought that everything had to be voted on. And if we don't get it right the first time, we're going to vote again. And I asked the Spirit of Messiah, I said, what? I know that every town has a principality of power. What is over the city of Mansfield? And he said, union spirit. So help me, that's what I heard. Spirit of union. Okay, so the spirit of union. And I said, well, what's that all about? Because I don't know anything about it. He said, they don't vote on everything. That's not how the Spirit of Messiah works.
Amen.
Man, the mindset of man is let's vote on it. Doesn't that sound like Korah? Doesn't that sound like the things that the Spirit of Messiah will lead us and guide us? But there was this voting thing. Let's vote on it. I thought, oh, that's interesting. Isn't it interesting that we just bought the Union Hall? My point is this. You know, what if I would have just saw today, and I would have saw all that stuff, just a few people, but it was crazy. And what if I just saw and I said, you know what, I got a congregation in Worcester. I don't need to really be here. What if I would have not seen today? You all would not have ever been here. How many of you today would say your lives that you have fruit from us today or being here? You see, And it's not just me, it's Steve, it's Roger, it's you, it's us. We continue to just be who we are. But we have to keep that mindset to say, let's look down the road. And I believe that's why we're moving to even have more room. I've had people say they won't come anymore because they said, we don't like, there's no room. We don't like feeling crowded. Well, guess what? We're going to have lots of room.
Amen.
And that'll probably fill up too, guys. Amen? Amen? So, we'll be, what's that?
I say we'll be crowded again.
We'll be crowded again. Hallelujah. Did you get anything out of this today?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is this, you're going through tests and trials and troubles, but be determined, build on Messiah, and remain to keep that fruit. And when the enemy comes, there's stuff that's going to blow away. Let the chaff blow away. Don't try to hold that flesh. I want to share one more thing with you. I haven't been here in a while, so I'm going to share something. There's a strange little thing in the Psalms. Go with me. I want you to look in Psalm 4. Turn in your Bibles to Psalm 4, because this is just a taste for next week. Look at Psalm 4. Now, how many of you have, look at your psalm, and tell me what it begins with? What does it say? Who else has something? You're right. Who else? What do you have?
What was it?
She has for the music director at the beginning. Who has anything else? For the leader? Anybody have anything else? What do you have? For the leader? Does anybody have to the chief musician? You have that? King James, to the chief musician. Let me share this with you. There's a Hebrew word. I think we have it up here. Lamenazea. Lamenazea. I won't quiz you on it. It literally, we have this interpretation. I want you to see. How many of you have that at the very beginning of your song? Does anybody have it at the end? Nobody. Interesting. I'm going to give you a little tidbit and send you out with this. Lema and Nazea is to the chief musician, but what is the true interpretation? Now, I want to talk about this in just a minute. There are some conjectures. When the Hebrews left and they were cast out and they were taken to Babylon, they come back into the land. And there was some conjecture when they come across the book of Psalms, there's some conjecture as to the interpretation of things. Now, I want you to see something. This strange word that we see up here is interpreted in some of our Bibles as to the leader, to the chief musician, and some folks have said that this is the way it was instructed in temple worship as to how to sing the song. But I want you to see this. That couldn't be the case because the temple was gone at that point. They had no real facts as to what to do with this. Was it an expression to the leader of the song or what? Well, I want to touch base on this because it has a lot to do with what we talked about today. Here are some conjectures as to what this word means. The Septuagint says it's in the Greek, eistotelos, which means with a view to the end. Say it with me, with a view to the end. In the Arabic, in the Vulgate, it says at the end. The Chaldeans say it means to the praise. And I think it's Psalm 45 that speaks about that. To the praise. Okay? The Septuagint, or the Septuagint reviser, his name was Aquila. He says it means to the giver of victory. Now here's where it gets interesting. The Talmud, or the rabbinic Jews, say it means to him who is to come. So we say, what does this all mean, Rabbi? There's a concept here that they're saying this. It is intended, number one, for a person. But who's the person? Is it the person singing the song? Is it the musician who's directing the song? It's to the chief musician. You know, when we study it all, you know what it means? It means it is literally a picture to the Messiah, who is the one who is orchestrating the song. In other words, to the one who is to come. They're looking to the end. Do you realize this? How many of you have it in the beginning of your songs? You have it in the beginning? How many of you have it at the end of your song? You have it at the end of your song?
Right.
It's interesting because, go ahead.
You alone, Adonai, make me live securely.
You have to understand that the ancient Hebrew Psalms were manuscripts. There was no break from one to another. I'll give you a little history here. You take it with you. It wasn't like we see it today. There was no break. The only breaks that they saw was this expression. It was all one, connected. Everybody say connected. So even though we see chapters and verses and we can quote them, it was a whole book. It was one long song. And it had places of pausing, and it had places of crescendos, but it was all one song. Say this with me, all one song. All one somewhere with this. The whole goal of it, though, was when you sing this song, it's always looking to the one who is at the end. You're always keeping your eyes not nearsighted, not saying, this is the way we're going to sing today, but it's saying, look at the one who's at the end of it all. Look at the one who it's all for. See, the whole book of Psalms, we're coming back to Psalms, that whole book of Psalms is about the lifestyle of a righteous one, who's planted by streams of water, who's going to be tested, who's going to be shaken. But if you're built on the rock, the chaff will go, the wheat will stay. How can we stay focused? Kepha tells us, don't be nearsighted, but be always focused upon the one who is writing your song. Keep that mentality of focus upon the one who's at the very end. Listen, we're not serving ourselves for today. We're looking for the end reward. How many are looking for the end reward? Yes. What is the end reward? It's Messiah. He's the end reward. Can I give you two? At the end of all, brothers, the end of all things is at hand. Be serious, watchful in your prayers. Above all things, fervent love for one another, for love will cover a multitude of sins. Everyone say love. Love. Be hospitable to one another, without grumbling. As each one has received, notice the gifts. Ministry to one another, good stewards of the manifold grace of God. Anyone speaks, let him speak as the oracles of God. If anyone ministers, let him do it with the ability which God supplies. In all things, God may be glorified through Yeshua Messiah, to whom belong the glory and dominion forever and ever. Everybody say amen. Amen. What does amen? So be it. Looking to the end. The Messiah at the end of it all. Don't escape to say. He goes on to tell you about the righteousness of Messiah. And watch what he says. This is what I quoted earlier. He says, add all these things. If these things are yours and abound, you will be neither barren nor unfruitful in the knowledge of our Lord Messiah Yeshua. For he who lacks these things is short-sighted or nearsighted, even to blindness, and has forgotten that he was cleansed from his old sin. He's telling you, keep the mindset. Stay strong. Stay focused upon the word. Do what's right. Don't be nearsighted, but also have that vision of being able to see. Because without a vision, the people perish. Amen. If you're stuck, I'm going to ask our musicians to come. Mike, would you come? Mark is still here. Would you come? Would you stand with me? Hallelujah. Scholars say this, Bollinger and Dr. J. Thurtle years and years ago. They say that expression should be at the end of the psalm. That expression should be seen as the last line of the psalm. Not as the introduction, but as the last line to say, in other words, it's saying to us, at the end of all things, when it's all said and done, it's all for the glory of Messiah. Amen. Whatever we do today should be with a focus upon the end, the one who is to come, the one who is at the end of all things. Because we will stand before him one day. Yeah. And there will be some who are, listen, I pray it's not here. I pray it's not here, but there will be some who will stand and they'll say, didn't I do this? And didn't I do that? And didn't I do that? And he's going to say, chaff. No, not those. Not those. These are people who know him, but they're so busy with things that are chaff. There's no real love. It all comes back to the love of Messiah, and there's no real love. They're even doing things that look good. I'm telling you guys, I'm not saying it's here. There are people who look like they're believers and they're doing awesome things, but it's all chaff. I don't want to be a people or a congregation of chaff. How many want wheat?
Yes.
So we retain that attitude of saying, let's keep our minds focused upon Messiah. When it's all said and done, what are you going through in your families and your homes? What are you going through at your job? What's going on with you today? We've talked about us as a people. What's going on with you? What's your chaff today? what's happening. I don't know what Yeshua wants to do today. I just feel like he wants to awaken us to say there's things that we need to stop paying so much attention to chaff and start really producing some wheat. I think we're a congregation that does produce wheat. I believe that.
Yes.
Now I'm saying, Father, give us more wheat. Give us wheat. Would you raise your hands with me? Father, in the wonderful name of Yeshua, we bless you today as a people. We thank you that, Father, we are a people only by your Spirit that produce wheat. And even in those tests, that wheat will be separated from the chaff, and you'll be pleased, Father, with the wheat that comes forth. All for you, all for your kingdom, Father. And I pray that you help us as a people to be encouraged. Father, encourage your people today. Encourage your people to not lose that mindset, Father, but to stay strong in you. Hazak, hazak, v'ni hazak. Be strong, and let us be strengthened in Yeshua's name. We thank you for it, Father. In the mighty name of Yeshua. Now I ask you, Father, to produce that wheat within us. Let the wheat come. Help us to be what you call us to be. That in the end, when it's all said and done, there'll be no chaff. In the mighty name of Yeshua this morning. Can you lead that, Nora? Can you lead that? Can you sing a few verses of it? What you were just praying. Give it his mic.
Let it rain. Let it rain.
Let it go.
Open the floodgates of heaven. Let it rain. Let it rain. Open the floodgates of heaven.
As he's singing that, I'm going to ask if you say today, I want wheat. I want wheat. I want you to come forward. Just make a statement of faith. Just come forward. Say, I want wheat.
Open the floodgates of heaven.
Say, you what?
Let it rain.
Let the Ruach HaKodesh come.
Let it rain. Open the floodgates of heaven.
Produce your fruit in us, Lord.
Let it rain.
Even through the trials and the troubles, produce the fruit.
Let it rain.
Yeshua's name.
Open the floodgates of heaven. Let it rain. Let it rain. Open the floodgates of heaven.
Just keep playing, guys. I want to ask you before we leave today, I want you to turn to somebody and pray for them. Would you do that? Just pray for wheat in their lives. I haven't dismissed yet. I don't want to dismiss yet. But I want you to turn to somebody, just one person, turn around and pray for that person. Pray for wheat to come forward in their life. Would you do that? Find somebody and pray for them, guys. Find somebody and pray. Yisrael, Yivrecha Yahweh Vayishmerecha. Ya'er Yahweh B'navalecha, V'yihunecha. Yisa Yahweh B'navalecha, V'yasemecha Shalom. V'yasemecha Shalom. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh lift his countenance upon you. Lift his face upon you. May Yahweh be gracious to you. May he lift his face. May he shine upon you. And may Yahweh give you shalom. In the face of our Lord, Yeshua the Messiah. Adon HaAdonim, the Lord of Lords, and the King of Kings. And all of his people said, Amen. Amen. Go forth, produce wheat in Yeshua's name. Amen. Tell that chaff to go. The chaff has to go.